Welcome back to the Electronics Inside, the show where we tear down tools, toys and appliances just to find out what's inside. I'm David, and since everybody enjoyed the episode where we tore down some old 90s laptops, I thought I'd do another one. But this time it's going to be a tough one. Get it? Tough one? Okay, so clearly doing another straight laptop was going to be pretty repetitive. We weren't going to see much different. But I've always been a little bit curious to see what sort of hardware customizations and specializations there might be in tough laptops. And this is a beautiful old one from the late 90s. There's Windows 98 on it. And this is a Panasonic CF-25. And my goodness, it's a big one. The screen on this laptop alone is as thick as my entire current laptop. I mean, partly that's age, but also I'm hoping that's going to show us something about the hardware and how it's put together. But because I thought that might be a bit quick on its own, I also got hold of a tough tablet. Now again, this is quite an old one. This is running Android 4.42, I think, which, if memory serves, was the one that was actually specially made for tablets. Man, I'm really stretching my memory on Android versions here. So this is obviously much newer, but obviously it's a tablet, it was going to be. But still, toughened, industrial. This is by a company called, I'm not sure if that's NIR or NIR4, but this is definitely built for an industrial application with the old hand grip so you can go around taking your notes on it. Sadly, the rubber around the edge has started to perish and sort of turn back into oil, basically. But this does actually function. I say it functions. It functions about as well as you would expect a 10, 11-year-old tablet to work. As in, it turns on, none of the modern app support will be there. I've no idea what storage capacity this is, so I could probably take 3 photos on the 8-megapixel camera, and that'd be that. Boots nicely though. Obviously, we've got a fairly thick tablet. We've got a SIM card and micro SD tray with screw covers, volume buttons, power buttons. At the top we've got a headphone jack with a cover. Not a lot else going on. This has got a GSM modem. Oh, micro USB charging port at the bottom, which of course has lost its cover because that would have been popped on and off about 1,000 times. Specialised handle on the back, which for some reason I really like. I don't know, maybe it's just me. So, the laptop. Oh, this beauty of a machine. A Panasonic CF-25 with a Pentium inside. Oh. Keyboard's a bit sticky these days, but I think, again, that's an age thing. I think back in the day that would have been perfectly acceptable. Mouse and trackpad rather than an annoying little felt nipple, whatever they are. I have had to turn this on and the mouse was a bit touch and go. On this side we've got PCMCIA or expansion cards. It's got 3 in here. I couldn't tell you of any other machine that's got 3, but I guess they had size to play with. PS2 port for a mouse or a keyboard and 15-volt charger, which incidentally I don't have. On the rear you've obviously got parallel, D9 for RS-232 serial port and VGA for the monitor. On this end you've got the modular port, which in this case holds a CD drive. Weirdly enough, I feel like there should have been a USB accessory that would have fitted in there, giving this a USB port. I had one in a Windows 95 machine, this came with 98. Feels like it should have been an option. So on the front you've got an IR port, headphone port. I'm not sure if that's headset, so I don't know if it's got the 4th pole, but we can check that out when we're inside. You've got some speakers, indicators for the battery and power. MP release. I know this ejects that CD drive. MP, modular port, something along those lines. This port on the back is likely something custom, which probably includes the pinout for IDE, as well as a few other compatible type ports. And then you have this weird little slot on the bottom, which will be a dock. So you could take this, plug it into your dock, and you have accessories and peripherals already plugged in. Otherwise, it's not too different in terms of functionality to contemporary cut stuff, but again, I'm not really for this teardown interested in the actual electronics. I'm only hoping that we're going to see specialisms in how the hardware is implemented, which contributes to making it tough and ruggedized. Let's get into it. I still feel like I slightly miss Windows 98, like it was somehow a more innocent time. It's also way more unstable and harder to work with time, but that's kind of neither here nor there. Okay, bits we know we can get rid of. Let's get this modular drive out. Optical drive, CD-ROM, disk burning. I don't want to go hyperbole and say didn't exist back then, but was definitely harder to come by. So, ooh, okay, actually I wonder if this big chunk at the front is a battery, which would be the next candidate for the most obviously user serviceable or maintenance driven replacement. Oh, zinc or alley construction, straight into battery pack, hard drive, RAM. Yeah, these were the sorts of things I was hoping to find in terms of customizations. There's like this giant jelly silicon tomb for the hard drive. That is weird. Oh, that's super cool. Got to be the battery. What are we talking here? Lithium ion, 10.8 volts, 2.3 amp hours, 24 watt hours? I guess it's not terrible. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 18 650s in there. I'm not going to bust open a battery cover. So how do we go about removing the hard drive? Do we go about removing the hard drive? Aha. Pull tab. Oh yeah. Nice little 2.5 inch IDE hard drive. This is a 2 GB hard drive. You are even cuter than I thought you'd be. Oh, bless it. That laptop's got 4 times the RAM that this one had hard drive storage. But yeah, this silicon rubbery... Right, the best likeness I can think of for this. You know when you get something free on the front of a magazine, like used to get like a little toy or a CD on the front of a magazine, and it was always stuck on with that little clear glob of something which obviously looked like it was applied hot, but now was like super rubbery. Feels like a block of that. Okay, should we start whipping some screws out and see what happens? I'm going to say I've never had a laptop with a metal case. I'm obviously aware that they do exist, but you think of like MacBooks and the Asus ZenBooks and stuff like that that these days have metallic case, and they're all about the space saving, not the rigidity or ruggedness. Hey, there you go. So mouse and keyboard have just flown out of there, leaving me very little to go on to how they connected. Oh, nice little plug-in connector there, which is unusual for laptops. They normally have really fiddly, horrible little ribbon cables that you sort of have to contort your hands into to have half a chance of getting in there. I'm happily surprised with that. Let's see if we can get the display connector out. It's got a nice flat ferrite choke and a spiral around one of the hinges to allow for that flexibility. Nice touch. But the motherboard's all really integrated, or appears to be so far. It's interesting that one of these is already unscrewed. So I guess there's an age of very, very lucky person that has never had to deal with VGA parallel or 9-pin serial. So you may or may not be familiar with the fact that they have these little, they look like standoffs, sort of male to female screws that are either side of the port. And the idea being that the plug, the male side, has got these little pins which screwed in to hold them in. But very often, especially if you were using them regularly with like displays on projectors or external monitors and things like that, eventually you'd unscrew that plug and it would unscrew this from the computer with it. So the next time you went to plug it in, you didn't have these screws, and then the plug was loose, and then it would bend, and then it would break the port, and yeah, just plugs and connectors that don't make use of these are generally preferable. So why don't you want to come out? Oh, that will be the hinge position switch or sensor, so it knows when the lid of the laptop's open or closed. That's fair enough. What's this? Because we've got a battery here, which amazingly hasn't killed this computer board yet. There's something that disappears down there. Was that another battery? No, speaker. So what are these holes at the front? Speaker's at the back, then what was at the front? And actually it's kind of impressive we could hear that speaker at all through aluminium body. Whoops. It seems very, very alien that there's basically no cooling in here at all, which is perfect for a rugged industrial environment because you've got no fans sucking in dust and dirt to help accelerate the death of this computer. And that's mostly down to the low power consumption of the processor. I just kind of wonder what this copper brass looking stuff was. We have a set of hot components and some thermal pads. So that would have been there on the underside of that. No, other way around. Yeah, that looks right. So what have we here? Copyright 91, 92, 95, Intel Corporation. I think that is probably cache and the CPU in its own little die, which is cool. Do you remember when we were doing the other laptops and I said it was unusual to see a CPU on its separate chip so it could be replaced and upgraded, especially in laptops? But this appears to be just that. I mean, sure, it means you don't have to re-solder and have different stocks. You can just order the CPUs and plug them into the same motherboards. But that's a cool little die. I like that one. So I'm not too worried about the keyboard and mouse. I don't think there are going to be any hardware specializations there, but I do just kind of want to take a look at this cover, but I wonder what they've done to protect the screen, because screens are, of course, as all of us modern smartphone owners know, notoriously fragile. Oh, that's a specialisation I hadn't expected. There is actually a sacrificial panel in there. Rather than just going straight to the screen like most laptops would, there's something that you can properly clean. CFD driver, compact fluorescent backlight driver, I should say. Still metallic housing. Oh, not really anything special here. There's just like a neoprene, sort of that foamy expanded rubber type matting. Fixed down through from the back to the screen. So it's not tons of protection, although that is probably the thickest casting we've had. Yeah, this cover over the screen is significantly thicker. I wish I knew what this was though. Don't forget, if you do know, let me know over at the Element 14 community, link below. Okay, so laptop in pieces. Let's now have a look at its grandchild, great-grandchild, child? I don't know. How many generations different do you think a Pentium with 16 meg of RAM is to a tablet? I think the key thing I really want to know is this a tablet inside essentially a rugged case, or is this actually a completely distinct and special tablet? I mean, the fact it's got screws is amazing for a tablet. I'm not going to have to heat glue to get it apart. Maybe. It's a shame, no SIM card or SD card in there. Oh look, you can see where this rubber's rubbing off on the table. I can tell you my fingers are getting sticky and tacky just dealing with this. Ah, nice! It is actually a discrete tablet. So it's an ABS and polycarbonate tablet. Unfortunately, this must have taken some impacts because those screws that I couldn't get out, they've actually broken off the posts, or the brass inserts have broken off. But that's really telling, and I think I started my love affair with the actual brass bushings and inserts with the medical device, the EKG we looked at, and that's like my hallmark of quality. But unfortunately, they've taken the impacts, and the plastics that are holding them break. They can't do their job. But that does show that this is supposed to be serviceable, and I bet the battery in here is really easily removed. There you go, nice user serviceable battery, 10,000 milliamp hour. So it's only just about half the capacity of this. I guess probably not far off half the volume. Oh, there's actually a gasket sealing water out or dust out front and back. There really is very little to this. Although it is a different method of construction, I feel like they got to a point where the outside design and the physical form factor was very intentional for the ruggedization. But then they got to a point where they sort of went, well, we've got space to play with, we might as well make it easy to assemble and cheaper. I'm not criticising, I'm just stating it as it seems. I think I probably would have done the same. So that tiny connector, is that display or digitizer? It looks like there were two revisions of this board. You could either put the plug there, socket there, or vice versa, and have the driver on the flex going to the board, or you could have it all on board here, but you needed a bigger pin connector. That's a cool detail, I like that. Okay, so I'm going to say that's the digitizer and that was the display driver. And you'll have system on a chip in here, you'll have some Wi-Fi or storage controllers. There is nothing on a tablet which is particularly different to a phone, just slightly bigger. And you can see the front-facing camera hanging off here, the rear-facing camera there. Then you've got the display driver there. It's all very stuff we're very familiar with. Okay, in terms of the tablet and the hardware specializations, it's all external. And the fact that there are no moving parts mean it's very easy to do. And obviously we saw that the one repeatedly usable mechanical part, which was the USB plug for charging the micro USB socket, was the one thing that had failed. Everything else was pretty well sealed other than the deterioration of the materials it was made out of, which is forgivable. We don't know what environment this lived in. But actually the hardware of a modern tablet, phone, and we've seen this, they've become IP rated, they've become waterproof, dustproof, and that's great for consumers who, well, let's face it, we're all human, we all make mistakes and drop them in rain, in puddles, in baths, in ponds, in swimming pools, whatever. As somebody that has children, being able to wipe clean certain tablets and stuff from food and fingerprints is a blessing. But yeah, tablets don't take much to make them rugged. It's nice to see that this had user serviceable battery, which meant screws and easy access, and I'm sure I could have bought these at the time that this was contemporary, and people clearly did. And the brass bushing is a nice sign of quality manufacturing, expecting customers to get in there to replace them. And if this was Jelly Bean from, I think that was about 2012, you know, this is 11 years old. How many people can say they're still rocking an 11-year-old phone? Probably not many. But you look at the laptop, and the laptop has some cool customizations just looking at the customizations as they were. I mean, again, protecting the mechanical parts, the dampening for this hard drive is fun. Could I say that? But yeah, that was the key thing that could go wrong. The quality of the hardware, or the qualities, the performance of the hardware, meaning it didn't need active cooling, meant there wasn't really the need to have fans that could suck in dust or extra holes that could let water in. And again, I mean, we saw that the CD drive, despite being a closed drawer, still had a cover on it. Granted, you could have had different modules which didn't have covers, but the CF cards, the PCMCIA cards, they had covers on them. The port to the back would have originally had covers, the headphone socket did. So it's all just sealing those outside environment from the hardware inside and making sure they're mechanically rigid. The use of alloys in this, I mean, compare this base made of zinc or aluminium. I can't bend that at all. It's a world of difference, and yes, you may have seen some brittlement from the aluminium, but I don't think it would have been that big a deal. If you drop that, it would still be okay. You might have chipped the corner, but again, you're not going to lose your hardware. It's still going to be operable and usable, at least until you can get it and swap the hard drive to a new unit. And that's interesting because modern computing, as I said, my laptop is as thick as the screen enclosure for that one. I wonder if users now would tolerate something that thick for the sake of ruggedness. And what do we do with newer hardware when it does require active cooling? Do you just rely on the metals of the case to work as a big heatsink, as they seem to be using here? Is that enough for a modern processor? I think it might be interesting in a future teardown to do another, more modern, more powerful PC and see how the ruggedizations have affected the hardware in there. Let me know what you think, and if you think that'll be a good teardown over at the Element 14 community. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.